Hello, we're here again today for whatwomenwant.com. And today we want to think a bit about what are the most kind of fundamental problems, the most fundamental distortions, if you will, that we run into in relationships. This is the most kind of fundamental, basic thing that I see in working with couples, and that is the concept that we hold about ourselves, how we think about ourselves, who we perceive ourselves to be. And I don't mean just, oh, I'm great. I mean the underlying kind of deep stuff that we operate out of, and then how we perceive our partner. And then on the other side of it, how they think about themselves and how she thinks about us. Those two things, if we've got the female here, the guy here, and they're looking at each other, interacting with each other, how she thinks about us, we respond to, we're shaped by. How she thinks about herself teaches us how to treat her, and the other way around. The way that we see her, she tends to become. Now, this is that old unconscious stuff. The stuff we have to sort of root out, figure out what it is. And then how we think about ourselves, we train her to teach us that way. To treat us that way. So there's this process that goes on where we're teaching each other how to be and how to engage with us. And that is always going on in the background in all of our interactions. So, guys, this is the stuff that, in some ways we like to, even avoid thinking about. But it messes with us. It messes with our relationships. It's the kind of stuff that we have to step up, we have to take a look at, and we have to go, oh, that. This is the stuff that we were taught in our mother's knee, our dad's knee. This is the stuff that, we learn from maybe our brothers and sisters, from our teachers, from wherever. The stuff that we sort of incorporated about who we are and what we expect from women. So this teaching each other, this is not, me saying to her, be like this. This is the stuff where, she does something that I don't like, but I reinforce it. I say, that's just like you. And she hears it and she goes, oh, that's like me. Or she'll say, that's just like you, you always do that. Our subconscious, unconscious hears that and goes, okay, I can do that. And it plays it out. So we start shaping each other, we start training each other to do often exactly the stuff that we don't want. So often when I'm sitting with a couple, one of the early things I ask them is, the wife will be complaining, he's like this, and he's like this, and he doesn't do this, and he does do that, and the list. And I'll turn to her and I say, how'd you train him to be like this? And at first she goes, I didn't do that, he came like that, he just does that. I'm like, really? You married him because this is how he was? And she kind of thinks about it and goes, well, no, he wasn't like that in the beginning. It's like, well, how did he get to be that way? What did you reinforce? What did you do? What did you tell him? What did you smile when he did this and frown when he did that? And all those kind of nonverbal ways, and often verbal ways. You're just like your father, right? Oh, great. That really helped. Now it's told me that's how I'm supposed to be. She's saying that to me. So that's the stuff that plays out. So when I turn to her and say, how did you train him to be like this? In the beginning, she goes, I didn't. I don't think I do. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But, as I push on it some, as we lean into it, it starts to come out, and he starts going, well, you know, you say this, and you told me that, and you told me that, you know, this is how I always am here, and this is how I always am there, and pretty soon I thought about myself this way, and I became that. Same thing the other way around, guys. How do we train her to be the way that we don't want? I mean, she may have been well practiced at it before she ever got to us. You know, she may have had good training in those areas, but we reinforced it. We drew it out. We encouraged it. And guys, we gotta dig in. Find what that is. Find how we do that and change that. That's what it takes. And that will make a huge difference. Let's look at it from another side. A lot of times I'll ask couples, well, when you guys first met, how did you see her? How did you view him that made you want to be with her? What made you want to be with him? And it's like, well, you know, she was like this and this and this, and you know, I would be so excited about seeing her, and I would be thinking about her these ways, and I'm like, how did you talk to her? What tone of voice? You know, what was the look in your eye when she walked into the room? You know, when you went to bed at night, what were you thinking about her? You know, because I'll bet it's different now. So one of the things I'll have people do to sort of change this up, change how we've been programming each other, is I'll have people think, you know, back when we fell in love, this is how I viewed her. This is the things that I did with her. These are the ways that I let her know that I really loved her. These are the ways that I let her know that I couldn't wait to see her and all that. Well, believe me, those messages are powerful. You know, of course she wanted to be around that. That's why she married you, right? So what if we go back to that? What if we approach her the same way? Now, I've had a lot of guys say, there's no way. I mean, do you know what she's like now? There's no way I could do that. I'm like, okay, how important is it to you? What do you want out of this? Well, it's pretty important. That's why I'm here. You know, that's probably why you're here looking at this right now. So it's pretty important. I had a guy one time call me up. This was all on the phone. And he said, I need help. Um, I can't stand her. She's the biggest, you know, what in the world. Blah, blah, blah. But we have a couple kids. You know, we have all this stuff between us. I really can't afford to leave her. I can't do that to the kids. You know, all that stuff. And I said, well, will she work with us? Will she be willing to get on the phone? And he was like, no way. No way. He said, we haven't even really talked for several years except about the kids and who's going to pick them up and who's going to get the groceries. He said, other than that, we live separate lives. In the house, out of the house. That's it. And I was like, all right, do you remember when you first got together? He said, yeah, we were teenagers, literally teenagers. And he said, we were so in love. I said, how did you picture her in your mind? How did you talk to her? How did you touch her? How were you with her that made her want to be with you? He was like, oh my gosh, you know, I thought she was the hottest thing ever. She was the best. I loved her so much, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, I want you to start relating to her that way. And he was like, of course, no way, I can't do it. I'm like, okay, then we can't go further. He's like, okay, what do I have to do? I said, do you know what you have to do? And we, you know, talked about that some, but basically that was the assignment. I talked to him a couple weeks later. You know, he was still kind of fighting with the idea. He would be pretty good about it, and then he'd get all pissed and be all reactive and Start telling her what a jerk she was and all that stuff, you know. And so we sort of shored up the process, got him more committed. He called me back 2, 3 weeks later. And I said, how is it? And he said, well, I don't need your help anymore. And I sort of laughed and said, you know, is there a body buried in the backyard? And he was like, no. He said, we're like teenagers in love again. He said, I finally really did and stuck with what you suggested about how I thought about her, how I treated her, what I reinforced in her, all the stuff we're talking about. And he said, it's amazing the changes that took place in her. You know, she opened up to me again. She was feeling so hurt. She was, you know, she was taking in all those junky negative messages I was giving her and playing them out. And he said, now she's taking in all those loving, caring messages. And, you know, she turned into the girl, the woman I fell in love with. And it's so good now. So that's where we start, that kind of understanding. We're doing it. We're training them. We don't see it, but we have to. We have to kind of step back, look at us, look at them, go, okay, what am I doing? What are they doing? What can I do differently? And we have to start giving these other kinds of messages, really fundamentally seeing her differently, even though in the beginning that's not how she's showing up. We have to use our imagination to go, I know that's in there, and I can relate to her that way, and I can treat her that way, and I can think about me differently, and I can think about me the way I was when we fell in love. You guys get the idea. So think about this. And we'll go further into this in other videos. You can do it. It will work. It will move things along a lot. So step up. We're guys. We can do this. Let's give it a go.